So I want to briefly talk about making the application process a little less stressful for disabled people, people with anxiety issues. Now, there's many other things I could cover in this subject about how to make it more accessible for people with learning disabilities or physical disabilities and so on and so on, but I'm really focusing on anxiety-related things in this talk. So yes, I'm skipping a bunch of things. Well, the first thing I would like to talk about is to make a better, more clear timeline with you are first also stating the amount of uncertainty in the timeline you're making. This way that if there's something unusual happens, they're more likely to know it, but they feel less likely like they have to check in or make phone calls, and they know what's more up. And also by adding some uncertainty message, if something is slightly off, they feel that, okay, I can understand that it's slightly off now and then. And updates on the timeline, maybe on your website. Another one is that for a bunch of people that are disabled, there is some uncertainty with the actual timelines. So, with the contacts. So some people prefer to be contacted by text, Facebook Messenger, emails, or something like that, because it causes them less anxiety over certain things. And it can be for a variety of reasons. Some people do not like seeing emails because they have so many email anxiety because of all the messages they get in the emails, so they start associating emails of a certain type. Or the same with texts, or the same with Messenger, or they feel like it's less formal, or this should be in this. So you can make sure that your thing has a notification type for your audience, then it's less stressful for your specific audience. And now you can also, there's a thing that some people do not like giving away personal information, especially people with PDA or something like that, because it feels like a demand or an invasion, even if it doesn't logically make sense. So by choosing what way people contact you, you're also getting rid of that feeling that you're forcing someone to give up private information because they have more choice and options. Another thing that can help with a variety of things, including this, is have a way to blink out a portion of the screen so you don't see everything all at once. And the reason why this could help is because then it's less overwhelming. It can also make it easier for people to read or stuff like that. So this is also just another option I'm throwing out there. If you don't want to blink out, maybe highlighting a portion of a thing that you're going through could help ease it in much the same way, or still they can look at other portions or something like that if they want to. And for some people on certain screen devices, one might be also better than the other one. Another idea along the lines is to have the older version always up in case there's a software problem or something, or a backup way, and so when they don't panic when the website is down, and so your team can still work on it when the website is down in any way. Also having a PDF version of like all the instructions or something, or questions they can't answer there might be useful, so they can look over it beforehand and see everything, or some way they can see everything all at once. And why I specifically mentioned a PDF version is PDF can be downloaded anywhere you go, and it's one of the most widely compatible types of things and uses some of the least amount of data. You can also have an audio version for people that prefer listening to it, either due to difficulties reading or something over screens, or when they just want to lay down and close their eyes and listen to it while they're doing other things to calm themselves down. So that is just another idea. So another idea is to have a method to transfer info. So let's say you're applying to a school for a graduate program, and you have 10 times you can apply to 10 programs. Well, oftentimes they make you do everything from the start over again. But why don't they have a way to transfer information from one application to another application, so you only have to answer specific questions again, making the whole thing less stressful? This can also help with disabled people and stuff, when they might have less chance of getting in and might need to shotgun it more, or other minorities. Or when people that are less decided because of anxiety and stuff, so they can shotgun it more. Another thing is that making this whole system less bureaucratic could be hugely helpful, and also making your system enough where you decide less bureaucratic, because it's shown that the bureaucracy and hiring more people oftentimes in complex ways actually doesn't help the process, it slows it down. And that means, and the slower it goes, the more stressful it is for a variety of people. And also, the less likely communication stuff is clear. So, again, a huge point. Also, having different more format options and more font options, including font size, font type, dark theme and stuff like that, can really help. You can lower sensitivity to light or other things. Some people find certain colors calming. Some people find certain fonts easier to read. Some people find certain fonts more delightful. And it just plays on your senses. Also having zoom in options to just see stuff more easily, or stuff like that, just to make it a little bit more calming and easier for people just to do. Another idea along all these lines is to make a certain priority option. Now, priority option, what I would mean is that your application, you say you can put in numbers or something when you want to hear by, and they first look at your applications early to other ones. Maybe even put it, even if it comes at that detriment of you maybe not getting accepted as easily. Not the early decision, but also a contract that maybe you get accepted less easily, but they first look at your one, if that makes you more of a state of mind. Now, some people will skew this and put heavy priority when they don't mean it, but some people will be honest with this. You could also have priority options where you submit your application to 10 different places, but make one of them your priority, or something in some weird complex formula, which I'll get back to later on. So, besides the different type of notifications, you also want to figure out, do people prefer email or text or voice, because they're a different amount of annoying to different people. But I already went over a little bit with the different types. But I also now want to mean about when I give out the info, you prioritize how you're notified with info I give out. So I can email, say I want every type. I'm giving you all my notification thing, but only notify me this one, or first notify me in this way, email. Then if I haven't answered in 10 days, text, or vice versa. And I also mean by this contact that if I need to get help or representative, specifically what I didn't go over, I can email them, or I can text them, or I can use Facebook Messenger, or I can use Instagram. This is a variety way for me also contact for help during this whole application procedure that may be less stressful or easier for me specifically to do. So, another thing to put out there is that we also would want, besides the notification choices I talked about before, we can have notification choices with we can ask for notification choices of when they notify us, so they only notify us during certain hours of the day when we're less likely to be anxious or looking over all the things. So like we had that. So maybe you want all the notifications only after 8 p.m. when you're outside of work. You can have notification choices that they also only notify you after a certain amount of things. So after they only notify you after they want to send you 5 emails or a certain amount of emails. You can have them notify you also on different types of wording choices. Or fonts and stuff like that, or a different dark screen or something like that. More choices, the better. Now, with all these choices and stuff, it can get overwhelming. So maybe you want to have like advanced settings option or something that people can click on the side, so not everyone sees all this stuff. But there's the option on the side that you can click and play around with, so people don't get overloaded by looking at that. Another thing maybe to consider would be to have what I'm going to call world hires, but people that are looking at the applications from all around the world, or people that are looking at applications with different holidays or something like that, so people can always keep the ball rolling more on an even pace for people. And that is likely that also a system just totally breaks. Everyone's on break at the same time, and the whole thing collapses. Or you can hire people to work different hours also, just to work with the system and make it more continuous kind of thing. Now, another thing is to have an app method to do it. And this app could be could be your main source of notifications, and could be quickly loaded and unloaded afterwards. But of course, it'll do it for people that have troubles using computers and do mobile devices, or people can do on mobile devices when they have energy on the train or something, when they're trying to distract themselves, and then come back and not do it. Stuff like that. Another thing is that you should have your website or your app and everything reviewed by different neurodivergent people and people with some sort of training, so they can go over it and find stuff that you might not notice. Besides this, there should be a standard way of giving feedback back on it, so people can slowly make their whole system better and better. You should be able to choose your username, and they not just you give it, and you be able to change your username, so it can become more standardized across platforms, and so you can get rid of anxiety maybe from dead naming or something like that, stuff like that, and it also just helps with memory. Another one is the same way as with security. Different security options cause different people a different amount of stress. So you can choose to have less secure password option, but then add more captchas to make it more secure. Or you can have less of one of those other two and have more questions for security, with different security options. And that also might make your whole system less vulnerable to hackers, because hackers only learn how to get in by one way. There's also the changing username and passwords I've talked about before, where instead of having one password, you have one that changes depending on the date or something, where like in the beginning or the end of your password, you add a date, something like that. And they can't, and other people do not know if you're adding it at the beginning or the end of your passwords. Another idea is to make a system with an auto hire option or track that just automatically goes from you more. And so like a bachelor's to master's to doctorate track or other tracks, so people do not even have to apply in the first place. Also, another option, just to put out there, is to make this whole application process open for much longer periods of time. And by having it open for much, much longer periods of time, people might get less stressed out because now they don't have to, they can do it years in advance or something like that, or a year in advance, and they can submit much earlier. But that might require more planning ahead. So that's just an idea I'm throwing out there yet again. So another option is to have more people participate in the hiring process so it's faster and also so there's more diversity. But I mean, like, students could help find new students or look over stuff. Your workers might also, instead of your management, might help hire people, stuff like that. And that also makes the people in your group more feel like they have more agency and more proud of the place, and people can figure out more capability issues better than maybe your management, which is out of touch. Also, management might become, because they're isolated, become more bureaucratic, slow, and do stuff in more of a traditional or complex manner, where new people or people that are not always doing it might bring new insight into how to make the whole process better in some way. Another way to make this whole process better is to figure out that we might want to have alternative questions. And by alternative questions, I mean that you can either answer question A or B, and one of them might make you less anxious because maybe they give less personal information, or maybe it can be more personal, or maybe it's more of a scientific one or logical essay, or maybe it's more of a one that's more about feelings, or maybe you can submit pictures, like sometimes maybe submit pictures, illustration. The problem with having more questions is that people might feel overloaded because they might feel like they have to answer every one. But making it very clear, you don't have to answer every single question. You can if you want to, in some way, and then we won't penalize if we're not, but we'll just weigh some things maybe more heavily than other ones, or something like that. So we'll have to think about how to do this system in a good way if we want to do it that way at all. So one thing that always applies is to make the beforehand process a lot better. And by the beforehand process, I mean everything we've done beforehand to make sure that more diversity gets through, people are less stressed out beforehand, and people get better grades and stuff like that, and it's less discriminatory. So maybe, which is a very broad one, but stuff like that. So one way to get rid of bias in the application process, but also to in some ways make people feel more confident that these things will not play a role, is you can have an application process that people look at the same application, but it switches around and then the gender randomly on it, or other details about your identity or names. So any bias that might creep out in there when people are looking at it, we can try to use some math and try to, in a way, get rid of that. So like we see that you score a lot higher when you have identify as a cis male with a man-sounding name. We might then, if we take your other scores and make them higher for people that didn't when you want under that one, and just raise them up. So another idea I'm throwing out there is to have specifically an application consultant that helps with your application, and they can do a bunch of ones. It helps you work through it and stuff in an orderly pace. And they might be someone from outside that helps your application, but they will help you in multiple things from day to day. And this might be part of a therapist's back, so it could be to do this, and maybe therapists should help more people with these applications, Because if you have anxiety disorder, one thing, like we can't treat it without the system. If you don't get a job, you're going to have more anxiety. If you don't get into the school you want, you're going to have more anxiety. So having a therapist actually help you with these real world things might be a very, very useful thing to do. It also might push more people to get therapy that should be getting therapy for a wide range of reasons. Another thing to do is to teach people is to have teach people how to make diagrams and wording that's more inclusive and easier for people to understand while being less overwhelming. All around in schools and stuff before they even become managers or anything. And if they do that, they're more likely to bring it to their managerial jobs. Kind of also along this line, if we teach people to be less elitist in the first place and more inclusive, they're more likely to become better in making this whole process better for everyone. So another one is to make reapplying to a place easier, or in the very least, maybe not, or that you can reuse materials easier, or you can cancel one and reapply at a later date if you suddenly get illness or sick or something. Another thing is maybe instead of answering directly on your thing, in case you worry about internet crashing or something, or wording or something, you can answer on a document everything beforehand. And this document you can just simply upload at times. Just an idea I'm throwing out there. So some more technological ideas is to have a legit taunting method for all this stuff. Now, what I mean by taunting method for all this stuff is that torrents are able to keep documents in multiple places and see them and download them. Therefore, that the idea about having mobile ones, having your whole website being like a torrent one is, let's say your computer crashes. Let's say the mainframe computer crashes. Someone else that is uploading their document actually gets some of your document, which slows down their Wi-Fi. It does slow down other people's computers if the system is slow, but you're more likely to get your document uploaded to somebody if the mainframe is having problems. So it's less, how would I put it? If Wi-Fi is perfect, you wouldn't notice a difference. If Wi-Fi is, if the Wi-Fi to the main thing is congested or down, this will be faster. If the main thing is not too congested, it will be slower. So it is more, in the best case scenario, it performs the same, but in other cases, it performs more of an average. But you can always, what you can do is, if you have mobile people nearby doing this, is it might also, you might not notice that it's slower uploading your things or anything because it uploads it to another person that uploads later to your website. So you might not notice that it has an hour delay because everything for you is going the same speed because of other computers giving it to you. But the whole system is more likely to be regular, that's my point. And oftentimes systems do crash or act weird. This also can give to more cybersecurity because taunting can actually spread out systems, making it less likely to hack, and it's less likely for a whole system to fail, and more likely there's a backup of some stuff somewhere. So another thing to talk about here is to have an alternative track where things carry over. So like you don't have to take as many classes, so you took more classes other places, so people feel less anxious about repeating stuff, or they can feel like they can do it fast and get out of the way. Or you can have one that has different rates, so you can take 1 or 4 years to do something in a more flexible system to get rid of anxiety or give other options, then encouraging people to just do what they want to do and be more open about it instead of saying you must do it this way, so people feel also more secure about doing it in odd ways. Also, there's people talking about it in general. Having more openings in the first place could be a huge help. The more openings there are, the less competition there is in some ways, and the more likely someone feel like they're going to get in. Also, the faster you can hire people if there's less people, because you have to be less selective, so you have to be less choosy. So say, I'm hiring you. You don't have to debate on the last 2 people, because you have only the last 10 people. Also, you can look at wording and try to figure out wording that makes everything sound less demanding. And for example of less demanding wording would be like saying instead of fill out this form, please fill out this form. But you could have different wording options like more or less demanding. Instead, just little things and they all can add up. Or it's like instead of saying you will do this or you'll fail, do this as we need it for this and this reason. Sometimes having an opposite thing to explain why someone needs to do something can make it seem less like a demand and more like a fair ask. And maybe having a website where they can change the wording options to these different things. Another thing that could be done is compassion training to people throughout this whole system. And therefore they will less likely to just be mean and stuff like that to you. Now compassion training could be pure. Now compassion training would seem ineffective, but ways we could do it is move people just talking about the feelings more openly on a regular basis and discrimination stuff, so people learn to not do it. And having workplace environments that encourage such talks. And also making people now and then go through their own system so they know what it feels like. And if their own system is bad, they understand that it's bad. And talking about privilege also could also help really with this compassion-based training. Having easier wording options for people with language difficulties or just really fancy words can freak out people, or having words that are less medicalized at times or something like that could really help. Of course, alternative wording, like you have someone training, try to rewrite it in local linguistics or local vernaculars and stuff like that, could really help make people feel more comfortable at home with the wording, and that more like they're including different types of people. Of course, none of it's perfect, but you get what I'm saying. But you get kind of what I'm saying. Sometimes you might want to have a video option explaining how to do everything, and showing someone doing it step by step. And then also maybe a video option sometimes to talk things through. Not always. What could also help is a better progress bar, because the progress bars can help in a variety of ways. They can tell you that, hey, I only have this amount left or something like that. But you might also want to have this progress bar having the option to be hidden, so it doesn't stress out people that seeing a little bar display might make them feel more. Now you can use adaptive AI to kind of try to figure out how to make the progress bar more to a person by either having one that collects a huge bunch of data on the person and figure out what they're slow at. But that's maybe too much privacy. Going into people's own privacy, you could have one that does it looking at cold garments of people and looking how long it take it. But you might want to also have one with certain limits, like figure out, hey, people sometimes turn on and off something, so we soon count something taking 2 hours because they just left it and weren't doing something for 2 hours. So one way to do that is to have a function that decays if they're taking so long on certain tasks. So it looks at your task, and instead of saying a task takes you 10 minutes, for the first 10 minutes it says it takes you 10 minutes, but it doesn't count anything after 10. Oh, okay, I'm not explaining this well, but let me explain. Like, let's say most tasks take 10 minutes, and another task takes 10 minutes, and another task takes 10 minutes, and 10 minutes if you go straight for food, but there's 10 tasks. Most people stop at task 5, 50 minutes or 50% progress. So, and then they take an hour break. But you really want to see that you're 50% done. So one way to get rid of that error would be to have some measurements of are people actually doing stuff actively. Another way is to say after a certain amount of period, 10 minutes, we might say we're not going to count time afterwards to learn about it. So the hour thing is not how it learns it. But then we don't know, but because we don't know the exact timing rate, we don't know if 20 minutes takes how would we say it? We don't know if 20 minutes, if they really stopped at 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So yeah, we couldn't, so we would still have to find arbitrary times when to stop calculating it and figuring out how much stuff, like maximum only takes 10 minutes, but it could take a minute for 8 minutes. So let's say that we're going to calculate times for each section between 8 and 10 minutes for the actual progress. Or we could say we can ask for user feedback, saying like, users, how much do you feel like this thing is taking long? So we could ask for user feedback. We could fit all fancy decay functions. We could look and figure out time distributions and make more accurate things, saying like, oh yeah, people are either going to take 10 minutes or 4 hours on this task. So it probably only takes 10 minutes. The 4 hours is someone took a long break. So yeah. Another one thing we could do is you submit your application to 10 places, but you're saying that, but you put in some code or something in there that you need to be accepted by one of these places, but you're okay if you're denied by every other place. So people, and then it weighs it more heavily so that you're least accepted to one place. Well, it might weigh the other ones more harshly. Something like that. So you know you're at least going to get into one place to get anxiety a little lower. And with this idea, we can have a process that if you deny that at one place, the other places, the chances you get into it goes up. So another thing along the whole lines of all these things that I've been talking about is that we can make sure that if you have notified, not only at a particular time you get your notifications, but also you can say tease a time or get a delay, saying I don't want to hear about it until after a certain amount of time, so you can update the notification times that previous talked about. Now, the final thing with kind of language is some people like languages that we get to a point and don't like the fancy fluffy one. He doesn't hear no or yes, not we really want to say that we really enjoyed the application, blah, 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 blah. They just want no or yes. Other people want to hear the reason why they denied or something. So also choose the blunt forwardness of your message if you get denied or accepted. It can help cause people to have less anxiety depending on the communication styles. Well, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in a year, 4,000 watch hours, which is really hard, but with your help I think I can do it. If you have any ideas for future videos, comments, or suggestions, please leave in the comment section below. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in a year and 4,000 watch hours, which is really hard, but with your help I think I can do it. Also, if you have any ideas for future videos, comments, or suggestions, please leave in the comment section below. And finally, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends to spread it. Goodbye.